Hi, my name is Farhan and I'm here to review Spider-Man Homecoming. This review will contain some light spoilers, but nothing that should give the entire film away. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest, unlike most people, I was cautiously optimistic towards this film, and also the fact that I didn't jump on the bandwagon hate of boycotting the Amazing Spider-Man films just so that Spider-Man can be in the MCU, but I'll get more into the concerns I had with the film prior to going to it. And I want to note that since Spider-Man is my favorite superheroes, I'm probably going to be more critical in this review than I usually am with superhero films. Tom Holland delivers a great performance as Peter Parker / Spider-Man in this film, and when he made his debut in Civil War, he is established to be a high school student who had had his powers for 6 months, and we all know his origin story at this point. Peter Parker is nerdy, quite introverted, being quite similar to Andrew Garfield's portrayal of the character, let's be real, and deals with life. As Spider-Man, he usually takes on small crimes and whatnot, cracking jokes when taking on bad guys, although he is quite inexperienced. But I do want to mention a few things, which is that there seems to be this misconception that Peter Parker is just a high school kid or that all his best stories are in high school, which if you actually read the comics then you would know that it's definitely not the case, as in the Amazing Spider-Man comics he had only been in high school for the first 28 issues and it has well over 700 issues. Now that would be applicable to the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, which were really good while it did have some flaws, and Peter Parker was pretty much a high school student all the way through, as he did die, but that's for another day. Also, I understand why they put him in high school narratively speaking, as you would have to explain where he was when the Chitauri invaded in the Avengers movie, etc. Anyway, the film actually takes place 2 months after Civil War and focuses more so on his personal life as Peter Parker and how being Spider-Man meshes into his life, and how he also wants to prove himself to Iron Man that he can handle things on his own. Also in the MCU, he does have his fangasms towards the Avengers, being like, oh my gosh, it's Iron Man. Now on its own it's fine, but personally speaking, I am not a big fan of it, as Peter Parker in the main comics is not like that at all, initially being pretty indifferent towards the Avengers, albeit being a bit jealous of them as they usually got praise for their heroics, whereas Spider-Man did not. Now of course over time he did gain respect for them, however the fangasm is quite prominent in the Ultimate comics, but I feel like they took that element and made it more prominent, being a bit more like Miles Morales and especially Kamala Khan in that regards. Main problem I have with the characterization is the inexperienced route they've gone with him. Now I don't have a problem with it conceptually, and I get that he's only got 8 months of experience, but I feel like he bumbles around a bit too much for his experience, and the film tries to hammer in his inexperience a bit too much, as he can't even web swing and traverse that well to places, and at one point in the film he even needs a car to get to a certain place when he's got web shooters to swing. And when he's trying to quickly climb up the Washington Monument, I'm thinking like, why didn't you just web zip up, it'd be quicker. I get that he's supposed to be inexperienced and wouldn't mind if he's making some mistakes here and there, but he's had enough time to experiment around with the web swinging and such to get the hang of it, because even in the Ultimate comic, which is what Tom's Spider-Man is more so based on, got the hang of web swinging and traversing completely within the first month or so while making some mistakes here and there, which is why I was hoping that this film would go more along the lines of. A concern I had for the film was that Tony was going to make everything for him, which I didn't want, as I felt that would have taken away from his intelligence. While it is quite true, all those functions had already been built in his costume that he had in Civil War, which now that I think about it, the suit does quite resemble his current suit in the comics. I'm not saying that Tom's Spider-Man isn't intelligent, because he does showcase it a couple times when he and Ned Leeds try to figure out stuff in regards to the Vulture. Jacob Batalon also delivers a great performance as Ned Leeds, being the nerdy, chubby Asian best friend who is quite comical and kind of helps him out with his superhero endeavors. Okay, I'm sorry, but this is Ganke Lee in disguise. For those that don't know, Ganke is actually Miles Morales' best friend in the comics. He even likes Lego like Ganke does in the comics. Anyway, he's a solid supporting character. What I'm just quite unsure of is that if they're going to implement some of Miles' character into Tom Holland's Spider-Man, why not just have Miles instead? And speaking of Miles, his uncle Aaron Davis was in this film, more so of a minor role, and references his nephew. Marissa Tomei does a great job as Aunt May, being Peter's parental figure, a pretty good one at that, as she definitely shows concern for Peter as a good mother would. This isn't a really proper criticism, but I still find them basically milfing Aunt May quite weird, as I'm more used to her being an older woman, but I suppose it's kind of going more along the lines of Ultimate Aunt May, where she is more in her 50s, being more cooler I'd say, but quite more understanding of Peter in regards to fitting in socially with others, so she doesn't baby him around too much. Which now that I think about it, it's also like with Miles Morales, where his mother is attractive, and even Ganke, just like Ned here in this film, finds them good looking respectively. Tony Revolori delivers a solid performance as Flash Thompson. Now the portrayal isn't how Flash typically is in the comics, or even in the previous film where he's more of a high school jock who bullies Peter both physically and verbally, but here he's not really a jock as he's quite smart and part of the academic decathlon team along with Peter and Ned, but he's higher up on the social ladder while Peter and Ned are kind of like the loser kids in comparison, so he does bully them but more so verbally and not physically, which I don't mind since it is a fresh take on the character. Laura Harriet also does a solid job as Liz Allen. Now she isn't that much like her comic counterpart where she was with Flash and kind of picked on Peter initially with him, but she's still an attractive girl, but she's actually a senior student in this film and leader of the academic decathlon team and most notably Peter's love interest in the film. So she doesn't really pick on Peter like she initially did in the main comics and is actually nice to him, although I would say that she is quite a bland character. Zendaya as Michelle did fine for what she was given, but she isn't given that much dialogue. She's just kinda there. And I've noticed that she seems to be more so based on Gwen Stacy from the Ultimate Comics where she's more of a tomboy, got quite the punkish attitude, and a bit of a loner. My only problem with her is how she was generally introduced in the film because she says earlier on in the film that she doesn't have any friends, but towards the end of the film she says that her friends call her MJ, meaning that she is supposed to be Mary Jane and will probably end up with Peter in future installments. However, Ned even points this out that she stated that she doesn't have any friends, so that was weird. I think it would have been better if she just said, "Name's Michelle, but call me MJ." Tony Stark surprisingly enough isn't in the film that much, he's only got a couple scenes. Robert Downey Jr. gives a great performance of course given that he's played Iron Man for almost a decade at this point. Anyway, here he's a mentor figure to Spider-Man and to some degree a bit of a father figure given that he wants Peter to do well and even be better than him. However, Peter feels that Tony babies him a bit too much and doesn't trust him enough to handle things on his own, which is what Peter tries to do. Which I'm glad because along with Tony making stuff for him, I was quite worried that they were essentially going to make Spider-Man a glorified sidekick of Iron Man, but I'm glad that here he's trying to prove himself and once he does so it's satisfying, so it's good on both Spidey and Iron Man's part. The main antagonist of the film is Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, who is played by Michael Keaton and delivers a great performance. He's actually a solid villain, which is quite surprising as the MCU villains are rather lackluster for the most part, and my biggest concern going into the film was that not only would they have him be mediocre, but they were going to kill him off given the MCU's track record with their villains. And since it's Spider-Man, if they've killed him off and Spider-Man doesn't care, then it would contradict his main motto, "With great power comes great responsibility," which would make it questionable as to what he learned from Uncle Ben's death, but thankfully he doesn't die, and even if he did, it did show that Peter was trying to make sure he doesn't kill him. The Vulture's motivation is solid as he feels that people in the higher class don't really care for the people in the lower classes, so it does go for a more relatable aspect. I'm not saying that he isn't shrewd or jaded, but I want to say that it's to the same extent as his comic counterpart. He's quite intimidating and definitely a threat to Spider-Man. I'd say that he's probably the third best MCU villain in the Marvel films behind Loki and Ego the Living Planet. There's also a Shocker, but he's more so of a secondary villain being an underling that works for the Vulture and does show how effective his shock gauntlets are. The cinematography is really good with solid effects and CGI. Spider-Man's powers are showcased quite well, but like I mentioned earlier, they try to hammer the inexperiencedness a bit too much, so we hardly really see any cool dynamic web swinging through the city like in the previous films. The action is good and serviceable, but compared to what we got in the previous film, it does quite pale in comparison. Also, there are some bits where I question whether spider sense works. I will say that it is pretty cool to see the functions of his suit. The comedy is great and the tone is pretty lighthearted. I also forgot to mention that in regards to how the public receives Spider-Man in the film, seems that majority of people do like him, but there are some that are not fond of him. The pacing does also feel a tad bit slow, but that's probably just me. So while I do have a couple gripes with the film, some minor, some not so much, but the positives definitely outweighs the negatives, and you'll be in for a fun experience. While Tom Holland is definitely not my favorite Spider-Man so far, nor is it my favorite Spider-Man film per se, but it is a really good film, albeit with some flaws. Overall, I give Spider-Man Homecoming an 8.5 out of 10. So tell me your thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a like, share it on social media, and please subscribe for more.